My name is Miriam Lopez Serrano, and I teach English at the University of Pedagogical Sciences of Havana, Cuba. I've been a teacher trainer for more than 30 years, so I have trained a lot of generations of teachers of English in Cuba. I'm the head of the language department in my university, and I'm here teaching English in the doctorate course of teachers here at the University of Camacho University. In this presentation, we will be talking about how to develop emotional intelligence skills in the foreign language classroom. We all know that teaching a foreign language is a huge challenge. We have to deal with different factors. We have to deal with our students' cognitive problems and motivation and affective problems. So this is important in the sense that when we teach a foreign language, we have to combine two important dimensions: the cognitive and the affective. And this is precisely what we are going to be doing today. We will be talking about some activities, strategies that we will use to develop our students' emotional intelligence skills. So this is the objective of this presentation: to invite teachers of English like me to reflect upon some activities and strategies that will serve to encourage the development of emotional intelligence skills in our students in the foreign language lesson. So, why developing emotional intelligence skills in our students? We have already spoken about the affective factor, and the affective factor is related to emotions. We need emotion to learn English, and we need to pay attention to our students' emotion when they learn the language. So, we have dealt with students who are shy, students who are insecure, who inhibit from participating or refuse to work together with other students or do group work. They are loners who prefer to work together. Sometimes they feel actually very disappointed or very frustrated when they are corrected, when we make corrections to them. So these are all emotional issues that we have to encounter in the language classroom. We all have, in our experiences, students like this. So these are emotional situations and emotional issues that we all need to solve. So it is in this respect that we need to think of strategies and activities which will help us develop some emotional intelligence skills in the classroom, which of course are not developed overnight. It takes time and training to develop those skills in our students, but it's up to us to think of the activities that will favor their emotions, and we have to think of activities who will help those target students who are insecure, and then again they feel shy when they have to speak the language. They don't want to work in groups, they prefer to work by themselves, or maybe they feel frustrated when we correct mistakes to them. So we need to design activities for each and every target of those students that we have. Now, today, emotional intelligence skills are everywhere. So this is a concern worldwide to develop these skills in the workplace and in every aspect of human lives. But the good news is that emotional intelligence skills can also be developed in the language classroom. If we take into consideration that when you learn a foreign language, you need to put a lot of interest, you need to be motivated, you need to put emotion, you need to put your heart into this language learning. So, if you take a look at this slide, we will see how Goldman in 1990 defines emotional intelligence. According to this author in his book, Emotional Intelligence, he defines emotional intelligence as the capacity, and I want you to observe the highlighted words, the capacity for recognizing our own feelings and those feelings of others, for motivating ourselves and for managing well the emotions that we have in ourselves and of course in our relationships with others. So if you take a look at this definition, you can see that this definition comprises different domains of emotional intelligence that Daniel Goleman proposes in his book, Emotional Intelligence. So he speaks about self-awareness. So what is this? Self-awareness is this ability or attitude that enables us to recognize our feelings, the way we feel, and name our emotions. Motivation. This is the capacity to keep on going even if we have to encounter failures or problems or emotional issues. And then self-regulation. Self-regulation is to learn how to handle our own feelings and control our emotions, to behave properly and to avoid negative feelings. And empathy. As the word says, empathy is just trying to understand the feelings of others and putting ourselves in the shoes of others, as we say in English. And adeptness, which is very related to empathy, is understanding the feelings of others and assuming an attitude to favor our relationships with others. Now, let us pose the following questions that will be answered throughout our presentation. What common emotional issues do our students struggle with? Think about it. What emotional issues do they struggle with? May their personality traits influence on their attitude and performance in the language class, the way they learn the language? Do they have emotional barriers when they learn the language? And what activities can we design to develop emotional intelligence skills? So, now it's time to speak about some activities and strategies which, from our experience as teachers of English for more than 30 years, have helped our students to develop emotional intelligence skills and cope with their emotional problems, which could be barriers for learning. And we have to design these strategies and activities to help them enhance learning and love language learning, of course. So, now we have the first group of students. We have called it Target Students Profile 1. Okay? Here you will see students who are shy, introverted, and insecure students who reject teamwork or speaking in public due to poor self-confidence and self-esteem. So we all have these students. How many of us haven't had these students in our classrooms? And it's difficult to cope. But then, these students are loners who prefer to work on their own. They fear to face challenges because, remember, they are shy and introverted. They are not social, they are not friendly, and they also fear to be criticized and find it very difficult to step out of their comfort zone. They panic when they have to step out of their comfort zone. Now, so if we have this kind of target students, the objective of the activities that we have to design for them should be to try to think of strategies or activities to foster interpersonal relationships and teamwork skills. So we propose the following activities. We have used these activities in our lessons and we've done very well. We've helped this target group of students. For instance, think about project work, group debate, role plays, simulations, dramatizations, problem solving, drama techniques, group debate, language games, and decision-making activities. Of course, if the students are shy, if they reject to work with others and they are loners, and we design activities in which they have to work with others, they have to accomplish a goal with the help of each other, and they need to work in synergy. We are fostering interpersonal relationships. In the case of dramatizations, they can act out situations with emotions. We speak, now there we monitor their strategic competence and verbal, body language and verbal communication, so they feel free to express themselves without fears and they feel less inhibited. Decision-making activities are very good for shy and students who refuse to work with other students because they have to make decisions, but to make decisions they need to work with someone else, they need to listen to someone else, and they need to learn how to be good listeners. So these are perfect activities for this type of students. Now, so here we can assign roles in the teams that we set up, okay? We can assign roles. For instance, we can assign, some students can be encouragers, summarizers, those who take notes and summarize what they've done, clarifiers, prompters, in case students forget something, they just prompt a hint, organizers, among others. So that they can feel they have responsibility in the team. And this is very important to foster responsibility and the value of solidarity and cooperation, which is what we are trying to do with these students. Now, let us speak about target students profile number 2, and here we have selfish students. Selfish in the sense that they lack empathy and rather focus on themselves. They find it very difficult to understand others when others have different points of view, and they find it very difficult to respect others' opinions, and they most of the time make their opinions or points of view prevail. They are dominant and self-centered rather than group-centered. So how can we do things with these students? How could we handle these students, and which strategies and activities are good with these students to help them improve their relationships and those emotional issues? Well, the objective of the activities here should be to improve students' abilities to understand and respect others' opinions, others' points of views, diversity. We need to teach them how to respect diversity, and also teach them how to manage conflict. And of course, we need to teach them how to be good listeners, because this is the key of communication, listening and being empathetic to the others. So the activities that we have thought of, and these are the ones we've tried in our lessons, are, for instance, two-sided arguments on a topic in group discussion. Two-sided arguments. One group is going to be in favor and the other group is going to be against. So they need to reach a consensus. In this case, they have to put themselves in the shoes of others, like, for instance, for these students also activities like giving advice, letters, for instance, you seek advice and the other group provides advice, or maybe problem-solving activities in which they have to discuss and debate and reach a consensus and understand what the others said and the others' points of view and arguments. So these are very recommendable or highly recommendable activities for these kinds of students. Of course, let me point out at this point that we need to grade the student. We need to grade the activities according to students' level, because we have to choose activities that should match the levels students have in our lessons, or their command of the language and what they really can do with the language. Now, let us take a look at this target student profile, which is number 3. We have number 3. What happens with these students? Well, for these students, it's difficult to identify their strengths and weaknesses. They have emotional issues, but it's difficult for them. They cannot understand what happens to them when they feel like down or depressed. So it's very tough for these students to monitor their own feelings and maximize their potentials in some of the areas in which they can be good, or maybe also manage some other areas in which they have difficulties. It is also challenging for these students to control their emotions and understand their behaviors. Sometimes they don't know why they act this way or another way. They cannot understand their feelings, and they tend to be negative at times and focus only on their learning difficulties instead of focusing on maybe their strengths or accomplishments in the language. So we need to help them as well to change their attitude. So the objective here is this one, to help those students develop this we have called, according to Goldman, intrapersonal relationship, which is this capacity of knowing myself, learning about myself, naming my feelings and the way I'm acting and why I'm doing this or acting like that. So the objective we have for these activities is to help students develop intrapersonal relationships so that they may identify their strengths and weaknesses, like I said before, in the language, and foster what we call metacognitive skills to control their own emotions and understand their own behaviors and change their attitudes. Now, the activities that we suggest here is those that require like reflection, self-reflection. And for this we have used the dialogue journal, in which students are requested to write down important events in their lives or concerns or feelings, and they keep it for themselves or they can share it with the teacher. But this is very good because they can write down in black and white what they feel. And this is a way to stop to think about themselves, all right? And trying to understand their feelings will help them see what happens with them, all right? So another activity is this one of asking for advice letters, like in a problem page in a magazine, asking for advice, all right? Role plays in which they act out situations that are maybe not part of their lives, but they can find themselves there somehow, portrayed there. And also portfolios and questionnaires, like what kind of person are you, in which they have to assess their personality features and even score some of the items in the questionnaire. And now we have the fourth target, student profile. These students here in this profile, of course I have numbered them in this way. They don't have a fixed number. This is the way I've numbered them to deliver my presentation here. So these students here feel very anxious, stressed and exhausted at the end of the week, which is normal. When we've had a hard week of teaching and learning the language, we all feel exhausted and we need to have a break. Well, but we need to teach on Fridays too, so we need to do our best to motivate them and to energize them. So we have also activities for these days in which we find it very difficult to teach because students are exhausted, or maybe the last class hours, or even before quizzes and exams, in which we all know that students get very stressed and we need to get them relaxed to succeed. So the objective that we need to bear in mind for this target student profile is to energize the classroom and create a relaxing atmosphere at the end of the week, on days like Fridays or last class hours, or when students feel exhausted, or when they have an exam and feel stressed. And we propose these activities. So we've done these activities and they've worked very well in our lessons. We ask them to write the lyrics of the songs that they hear, and we also use drama techniques which make them feel very active and energize them. All these are very invigorating activities. The so-called and the popular activity, Find Someone Who, because students have to stand up and move around the classroom, and that makes them feel active and energetic. Also going around and filling charts on the wall about different topics, nature, politics, friendship, etc. And the use of relaxation techniques like listening to instrumental music, and then we ask them to think of ideas or of people or situations or memories that come to their minds as they listen to that instrumental music. So that is a way to make them feel relaxed as well. And now we have the last, but not the least, target student profile. In importance, So we all have students in our classrooms who panic when they have to speak and they think that the teacher or the students are going to correct them. They fear to make mistakes. They are very sensitive. They are oversensitive to error correction and feedback. So what can we do with these students? Okay, with these students, we need to help them develop a positive attitude to error correction and constructive feedback as an important part of the learning process. We need to teach them to hear constructive feedback on the part of the teacher and of the part of the students, of the other students as well, when we do peer assessment. And of course, we are not proposing activities here because it's present in all stages of our lesson. Now, we need to teach our students in the first place that making a mistake or mistakes are an inherent part of the learning process, right? So it's a natural process when we learn because students are experimenting with the language. So if students do not make mistakes, it's a sign that they are not learning, and we don't want that. So we have some ways in which we should behave to handle error correction in the case of students who find it very difficult to accept that they need to be corrected. We need to do it very tactfully, and these are strategies that I have used in my lessons. For instance, we need to avoid interrupting students constantly to correct mistakes. Okay? Do not interrupt the students all the time, alright? But let us remember that there are some stages of the English lesson in which we need to correct. Like for instance, inaccuracy activities that are aimed for accuracy, alright? Like controlled practice and semi-controlled practice. But do not interrupt the students so much. Let us write down the mistake and then we correct them. You have to make a difference between error and slip, which is not the same. If students know that an error is something that will naturally happen because they haven't learned that aspect of the language yet, they won't feel frustrated. Okay? And they should also know that slips are caused because of maybe anxiety or situations in which they feel worried or concerned, or maybe circumstances which make them make this slip, but it's not a serious mistake and we call it a developmental error. Consider accuracy and fluency activities like I said before. And I've tried this with my students. If I know that my students do not like to hear, Mary, you mispronounce the Z in the verb lives. Well, I avoid naming the students who has made a mistake or prevent them from feeling ashamed. To prevent them from feeling ashamed. And what I do is I write down all the mistakes that they have committed in the lesson, and at the end of the lesson, I just discuss them all the mistakes. I discuss all the mistakes without saying who made the mistake, right? Let us work also with those students who are shy individually after class activities. So some students are very shy, so I have a one-to-one session with them or meeting with them, and we work on the mistakes. Let us involve students in peer assessment and self-assessment instead of always doing teacher correction, because they feel comfortable when other students help them. And it's very important to feel that they are contributing, their peers are contributing to their own learning by assessing them as well. And of course, use positive or constructive language when providing feedback. There are some teachers that are extremely cruel. Oh, what's this? You've made a terrible mistake. No. You wouldn't do that. I don't want that. Okay, all we are doing is to make the students feel frustrated. So we can say, for instance, Let us see, how can we improve this, you said. I think there is another way. Think about it. I know you can just identify where the error is, or maybe if the students have performed very well, we can say, good job. Well done, you've made a lot of progress. Students love to hear this, and we need to always give constructive feedback, and students need to hear constructive language when we provide feedback. Let us also highlight which students progress systematically, right? And make students accept that mistakes occur because, like I said already, they are experimenting with language, and mistakes are an inherent part of language learning, and they are developmental errors. Also, we can say that it depends on the types of students we have, all right? We need to consider the target students that we have to implement all these strategies and introduce them and introduce these strategies in our classrooms. To conclude this presentation, I have to say that I have a passion for emotional intelligence, and I have a passion for developing emotional intelligence skills in our students, because I know that in real life, sometimes the attitude and the willingness to do something, in this case to learn the language, is more important than the aptitude and the talent that you have for something. Of course, they need to go hand in hand, the cognitive and the affective, to enhance the learning process. Very important here is to build rapport with the students. Okay, this rapport that we need to build by making them feel confident, by making them feel that they belong there to that community of learning, and they are there to learn and to be helped. And of course, we need to build this rapport among the students as well. And of course, then again, building our learners' confidence and self-esteem by providing regular encouragement and constructive feedback, like I said before. Let us also create opportunities for cooperation, not competition, in order to develop interpersonal relationships. Emotional intelligence skills have a lot to offer to language teaching and learning. And like I said before, attitude in language learning is often more important than a gift, or the gift that some students may have for learning the language. It is essential to create a very pleasant, nice, friendly and stress-free atmosphere if we really want our students to feel happy about learning, to learn with emotion, and to enhance their language learning. So thank you very much.